Missed the meeting.
Oh, no worries. I'm glad that you're feeling better.
It took about 2.5 weeks.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm trying to
How are
play with my
you?
background. Sorry. I was trying to because I logged in, I'm still logged into my work Zoom, not my personal Zoom. I wanted a different background, but
All right. Same here. I just finished the work day and same here.
yeah. Well, like I said, I know the flu is making its round, so I'm glad that you're okay.
Thank you. Yes, it was a little tough, but it's okay. I got in there in time to get meds.
Mhm.
When you have a minute, before the next meeting, I'm gonna catch up with you a bit
Sure. Yeah, I should
from
have a lot more flexibility in the coming weeks.
uh,
The past month has been insane, work-wise and with travel. I have traveled every week, for the past month. So, but I have no travel for the next month, which is good. So I am flexible. Um, just shoot me an email and we can figure out a time.
Great. That's perfect.
Yep, anytime.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you all.
Hello, hello.
Hi, hi, hi.
Hey, y'all. Sorry, I know I missed a couple meetings. I was traveling myself, but it's good to see everybody.
Good to see you too.
Mhm.
Notice it's 601. Maggie, will Reginald be joining us tonight?
Hey, Valen, good evening.
Hi.
He will not be joining us, so I'll cover down on departmental updates, and I will share. I know we have our presenter here as well, Mr. Aaron Kane.
Perfect. Thank you, Maggie. Okay. Well, I think it's fair to call the meeting to order. All right, perfect. So calling the meeting to order, and we will have a roll call by our secretary, Sherrod Johnson. Oh wait, Sherrod isn't on yet. I jumped the gun. Sorry. Sorry. I'll give Sherrod a moment. Um, I can, let me find my, sorry. Okay, I'm jumping between screens. Oh, there you go. Hi, Sherrod.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I am. I'm great. Sorry, I just called us to order, and then I was like, Sherrod would do the roll, and then I was like, crap. So I apologize. So we
Sorry
can
about that.
officially get started. Yeah, no, that was my bad. And so we will officially get started with our roll call by our secretary, Sherrod Johnson.
Awesome. Give me one moment to pull up the attendance. All right. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. And when your name is called, please respond by saying here or present. Uh, Valen Alford,
Here.
Rashaki Furnace,
Present.
Leah Efford Green,
Here.
Robert Brown,
Here.
Ahmed Ali,
Here.
Alicia Curry,
Shit.
Brian Langloss,
Here.
Matthew Muntean,
Here.
Richard LeBennett, Seth Kendall,
Here.
Shonda Wilson,
Here.
Jennifer Ganzer,
Here.
and Tori Cook.
Here.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Gerard, I don't know if you caught that Alicia is here.
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both, and thanks for the roll call, Sherrod. We will next be voting on approving the minutes for the November 2024 meeting, 2024 meeting, and then the January 2025 meeting. And so you all received copies of those earlier today. And so if there do we have any comments or any suggestions or revisions? Okay. Do we have to do two separate votes, Maggie, or oh, okay. Thank y'all. Okay, so for the November 2024 minutes, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as is?
I'll make a motion to approve the November 2024 meeting minutes as is.
Thank you,
I'll
Jennifer.
second.
Thanks, Brian. So the motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Any opposed, say nay. Okay, thank you. And related to our January 2025 minutes, I'll ask for a motion for the minutes to be approved as is.
Make a motion to approve them.
Thank you, Robert. It has been properly moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes as is, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Thank you. So we have approved our November and January minutes. And next we will have a presentation from Aaron Kane with the Unified Development Ordinance.
Good evening, everyone. Excuse me. Thank you for having me. As Ms. Alford said, my name is Aaron Kane. I am a member of the team, the growth management team in the Durham City County Planning Department. And Maggie had reached out to me to ask if I could come and give you a presentation about the Unified Development Ordinance, what it is, how it relates to our comprehensive plan, and I'll also talk about some efforts that are currently underway to basically revamp and redo our Unified Development Ordinance. Please feel free to jump in with any questions if you have them. Does anybody have any questions to start off before I begin? Okay. I'll be able to see my screen with the presentation and see y'all. So if y'all just want to raise your hand at any time, please feel free to do so. And every platform's a little different, so I've got to find where there it is. There's the share button. Thinking about it. There we go. Can y'all see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Let me just expand that. There we go. Okay. So I'll begin. Basically, what is the Unified Development Ordinance, or as we call it generally, the UDO? It is essentially the regulations that guide how development happens in Durham. Whether you're adding a garage to your house, putting a shed in your backyard, or you're building a 25-story office building downtown, or you're building a shopping center down in the Woodcroft South Point area. All of that is guided by our Unified Development Ordinance. It tells you what you can build, where, and how you're going to go about doing it. Our current UDO was adopted in 2005 and went into effect in 2006. Development ordinances like this generally have a shelf life of about 20 years. After about 20 years, conditions change, thoughts about how development should be done change, and so forth. So it's about time that we redid our development ordinances. And like I said, we're in the process of starting that right now. So the first step in doing that usually is to adopt a comprehensive plan. Now, state law in North Carolina says that if you have zoning, you must have a comprehensive plan. or some sort of land use plan to guide how your zoning is going to be done. Knowing that we were going to need a new UDO in the future, we started in 2019 with some initial engagement efforts to put together our comprehensive plan, which was adopted in October of 2023 and is really the guiding document for policies and vision for how we should do the UDO. So as I mentioned, what is the role of the UDO? It is to provide the rules for development. So we have our comprehensive plan, which is our community vision, how we want Durham to grow over the next 20 or so years. The Unified Development Ordinance is going to be the rules, the code for how that's going to be done. And then, you'll see results in new developments that take place throughout the city and county. So, what is the comprehensive plan? It is essentially, like I said, it's a whole list of policies. There's almost 200 policies in there that guide how development should be done. It provides a roadmap for where we should be putting what types of development, what types of uses throughout the city and the county, as well as policies on a range of things from affordable housing to placement of utilities and all sorts of other things. So I won't read through all these. You can see these on the screen. But what does the comp plan tell us to do? It tells us to focus growth where we already have services. For a number of decades, Durham was really expanding horizontally, getting bigger, extending its water and sewer facilities, which enabled more dense growth on the outskirts. Our comp plan's telling us we should more focus inward. Grow up, not out is kind of something you've probably heard if you pay attention to the city council. You've probably heard them say that a number of times when zoning cases come up. We want to coordinate our transit investments and our transportation investments better with our land use policies so that we're putting higher density growth and affordable housing closer to transit where people really need it. We're trying to get away from things being car-centric or auto-centric and planning our communities so that they can better take advantage of transit, bike ped infrastructure, and other ways to get around. And we want to make sure this is a main focus that we've heard from council. We want to make sure that equity is involved in everything we're doing. So just to make sure it's clear about what the difference is between the comp plan and the UDO. The comprehensive plan is policy, and it can be overridden by the council at their discretion. It does not have the force of law. When we as staff are reviewing a development proposal, we will look at the policies of the comp plan. That's the adopted guidance from the elected officials. And so when we analyze or review a case, we'll review it against a number of the policies, the relevant policies of the comp plan. But we're really just providing that information to council so that they can make a decision based on those policies, and they don't always have to follow them. The UDO is the law. You can't get around that. Council cannot just say, well, we know the law, we know the UDO says this, but we're going to let you do this instead. That doesn't work that way. So it is the law, it implements the policies, and we do generally about once a year look to update the UDO, make some tweaks here and there, some fixes that we've seen aren't working. But we're going beyond that at this time and looking to just redo the entire development ordinance. So just again, talk about kind of like policy versus regulation. Here are some examples. What you'll see here, policy 58. This is something you would see in the UDO. More general statements about how we should have traffic calming. We should design our streets to be safer. We should make sure that we have bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and so forth. More general statements to guide what we should do. And here's the kinds of regulations that you're going to see in the UDO. Exactly how wide should the travel lanes be? How wide should a parking space be? How wide does the bicycle lane have to be? How wide does the curb have to be? Should there be curb and gutter? These are all very specific things that you'll find in the UDO that developers have to follow. There's not a choice on that. Another big component of the comprehensive plan, and something that if you've been following any zoning cases at the council, you've probably heard about this, the UGB, or the urban growth boundary. This is a relatively new concept in Durham, and this is not the city limits. It does go beyond the city limits. All of the cities incorporated into the urban growth boundary, but there are parts of the county jurisdiction that's also in it. And what this basically says is this is a line, and Durham is not going to, by policy, extend water and sewer infrastructure beyond that line. Now, why is that so important? Are any of y'all gardeners? Okay, a couple of you. How easy is it to garden in Durham? Yeah, exactly. There's a reason tobacco grows so well here because the soils here are terrible. We've got that Triassic clay soil. I remember when I bought my house, I bought it in 2002. It was built in 1984, and we were a little worried about some cracks in the foundation. And we brought in an engineer to look at it, and he said, "This is Durham. There ain't a 20-year-old house that doesn't have cracks in the foundation because it's all clay. It takes in water and it holds water. It's constantly expanding and contracting, moving those foundations. It's also not great to grow in. What it also is not good to do is perk. If you've ever lived out in the country and you had a septic tank, you know what perk is. It's how well your septic tank can flow into the ground. Septic does not do well in clay. So if you're going to do any development of any significance, any size, any density, you need to have sewer. You're simply not going to be able to perk. You're not going to be able to run anything. If you ever lived in the Midwest, you'd see people on quarter-acre lots, fifth-acre lots, sixth-acre lots on septic, no problem. They got those nice brown soils. The effluent flows through there nicely. Not in Durham. You've got to have sewer, and the water table here is not great, so it's tough to also get wells on anything less than an acre. So if you're going to do any development, you really need water and sewer. There's one place to get water and sewer in Durham, and that's the city. This isn't like some places like Virginia or up in the Northeast where lots of different water providers might be available. We got one. So if you want water and sewer, you're having to go to the city, and that's a really strong tool the city has for controlling its growth. Basically, anything outside this urban growth boundary is not going to grow much because they're not going to be able to access water and sewer. And it allows the city to make sure that we are growing up and using where we've already got our infrastructure rather than continuing to grow out. Will mention one thing, as it says down here, this is policy, not regulation. So if somebody wanted to rezone outside the urban growth boundary, there's nothing legally stopping the city council from agreeing to do that. In the 18 months or so since the comprehensive plan was adopted, we've had one case requested outside the urban growth boundary, and the council said no. So they've stuck to their guns so far on that. Another wrinkle to the urban growth boundary is the future growth area. These are these kind of salmon colored areas you see here, up here. They're on the edge of the urban growth boundary. And these are places that will eventually want to grow, but there are some infrastructure issues or some service issues that might prevent us from doing that right now. A lot of them, we don't have fire service available. Police service could be difficult. Um, we may not have sewer capacity right now in those areas. So we've labeled them future growth areas really just to be able to tell the council if somebody comes in and somebody wants to develop there, be aware that we might not really be prepared to serve that area right now. Then finally, the big thing that's in our comp plan is our place type map. It's not zoning, but this is just a general policy guide as to what kinds of development we want to see in the future, and acknowledging what kinds of development we have there right now. So you can see things like employment campus, downtown, community institution. These are things like places of worship, or other service buildings. Rural commercial, suburban commercial. These would be your shopping centers, suburban shopping centers, things like that. Neighborhood service, maybe small scale commercial areas or offices, things like that. A big one for us here is the transit opportunity area. That's where we're looking to really focus growth, have greater density than you see there now, greater intensity, a mix of uses and places that we could eventually be running some sort of high capacity transit in the future. Okay. So that's the comp plan framework. Those are some of the big things that came out of the comp plan and are guiding us towards what are we going to put in the Unified Development Ordinance that's going to implement that comp plan. You can see here the 5 kind of main themes for it. Organization and usability. I can tell you right now, if anybody's ever tried to look through our UDO, it is an absolute mess. You'll go to one chapter where it says you can do this, but you have to know that in this other chapter it says you can't do that if this. And if you're just looking up something as simple as what is my setback or what kind of density can I have, you might need to look in 3 or 4 chapters. It's kind of Frankenstein, right? It's been put together and changed and altered so many times that it really is for the public difficult to maneuver and to understand. So we're going to clean it up, simplify it. It's right now 17 chapters. I think we're getting it down to 10 or 11, and really try to put all the information that people need in one place. Housing choice and affordability. We're going to get into this more later because I know that's of primary importance to this group. The idea is to allow for more of a mix of housing types and not have just kind of acres and acres and acres of either townhouses or single family or whatever it might be, but to really allow for a mix, people at different stages in their lives to be able to be a part of the same neighborhood and keep that neighborhood vibrant. The built environment, we want to make sure that we're promoting transit, or promoting bike ped infrastructure, and making sure that we have rules in place so that we're not so car dependent as we have been for the last few decades. Recreation and open space, we want to make sure we're protecting our most important and our most needed protection for environmentally sensitive areas. Want to make sure we're doing that. Now we cannot, and I think this is something that comes up quite a bit, we cannot say regulate something for no uses. That's not allowed by the Constitution. Everybody has to be able to use the land for something. We can diminish the amount of return you might make on that land because it's environmentally sensitive or something, but we cannot completely remove your ability to use your land. And then finally, plan implementation. We have a number of policies in the comp plan, and then we also have a number of tasks in the comp plan as well, directing us to do things, especially with the UDO, like rewriting it. So, what does the UDO regulate and what doesn't it regulate? It talks about how you can apply for a permit, how you can apply for a rezoning, what are the public notice requirements, and how do we do that enforcement? How do we make sure people are following the rules? It includes zoning, and what the rules are of that zoning, and I'll talk a little bit more about zoning and what we do and do not regulate, so forth, with that, including land use, building size, site design, so forth. What it does not regulate the building code. So how big the boards have to be, how many smoke detectors you have to have and where they have to be, how much insulation goes in the home. Those things are not in the UDO. If it's about the structure of the home for the most part, that's going to be in the building code or the minimum housing code, which are enforced by other departments in the city or the county. State law does not allow us to regulate design of single family, duplex, triplex, and quadplex structures. So we cannot pass a rule saying, if any of you live in a neighborhood with an HOA and they're telling you what your mailbox needs to look like, or what color you can paint your house, or how the shutters need to look and so forth, we, by state law, the city cannot regulate that. That's between you and your HOA. We don't care. We're not getting involved. And we cannot do anything directly about the cost of housing. We're not allowed to require affordable housing, and we are definitely not allowed in North Carolina to do rent control. So we can, and I'll get into more specifics about what we can do, but we can't require affordable housing, and we cannot do rent control. So I've talked about zoning, and what exactly is zoning? Zoning is saying that an area or a piece of land, what uses can go on it, and what the buildings can look like on the land, and how they can be designed. I mean, to an extent, how they can be designed. For example, we have residential zoning districts, we have commercial zoning districts, we have office zoning districts, we have industrial, and so forth. And they all have their specific rules about what the design of the house is and what the form is. For example, in a single family neighborhood, maybe like this one, we can say how far the houses need to be from the street. We can say how far the house needs to be from the side property and the rear property. We can say how tall it can be. What we cannot do is say, oh, it has to be built with brick, or it cannot have vinyl siding, or it has to be painted a certain color, or it has to have so many windows. We cannot get into that. But we can get into where it is on the site and how tall it can be, that sort of thing. Why is there zoning? Well, it's been over 100 years since zoning was originally instituted, and the idea was that there are certain types of uses and certain types of things that you may not want next to each other. Obviously, the picture here is an extreme example, but there certainly were, during the Industrial Revolution, times when you'd have a smokestack factory next to a residential neighborhood. You'd have all sorts of, meat packing plants going in next to residences. Maybe not the kinds of things that you want next to each other. You want to provide some rules to say these types of uses should be over here, these types of uses should be over here for public health and safety. So basic components of zoning. Standards. Every zoning district has standards about height, density, setbacks, lot size, etc. What are the uses? What are the specific uses that are going to be allowed in that district? And then where exactly are those districts going to be? We use something called a zoning map to determine what those are. And here's an example. I think the most important thing about this slide is this link here, maps.durhamnc.gov. If you ever want to go on, you can go on there and find the zoning for any parcel in the city or county. And you can look up your place type. There's actually all sorts of really good information on there. They do a fantastic, our team and the technology solutions team does a fantastic job maintaining this. So there's all sorts of information you can get there. These over here are examples of our current zoning districts. Residential rural, the RSs are based on the size of the lot. This is a half acre, a quarter acre, a sixth acre. Um, these are commercial center, commercial neighborhood, commercial infill, commercial general. So these are just some examples of the types of zoning that we have. We have about 20 or so zoning districts in Durham right now. Okay, so now I'll get into affordable housing, which is my guess, something that's going to be most of interest to you. And full disclosure, I was actually a member of the CAC from 2004 to 2006. So I'm sure things have changed in the last 20 years or so. But this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. What everybody defines affordable housing a little bit differently. We do have a definition of affordable housing in the UDO, and it basically says that for rental, it is anything that is no more than 32% of your income going to rent if you're at the 60% of area median income or less. Um, So if it's for sale, it is at 80% of area median income or less. That's basically how we define affordable housing. That can be defined by HUD or by other jurisdictions in different ways. That's simply Durham's. Issues that we've got to be aware of. North Carolina is a Dillon's rule state. There's basically two kinds of states. There's home rule states and there's Dillon's rule states. If you're from the Northeast or you're from the Midwest or California, you might be used to being a home rule state, which basically means if you're a county or a city, you're allowed to do whatever you want to do unless the state says you can't, right? It's kind of like if you were a little kid and your mom said you can have anything that's in the refrigerator except for the chocolate milk, and then you can go get whatever you want. North Carolina is a Dillon's rule state. In fact, we're one of the Dillonist of the Dillon's rule states, which means that cities and counties can only do what the state legislature has specifically said we can do. Okay? It's more like your mom saying, you can have either the eggs or the milk in the fridge, and you're not allowed to have anything else. Simplest way for me to explain that. So that's something that we need to be aware of. If the state legislature has not said we can do it, like say requiring affordable housing, then we cannot assume that we can do it. I'll give you an example. Back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, Durham County instituted a school impact fee. We got sued and had not only had to pay the money back, had to pay the money back with interest and pay all the attorney's fees of the plaintiffs. So we got slapped real hard. So we're very careful to make sure that we're not running afoul of anything that the state legislature has not given us what's called enabling legislation to do. And a couple of those things are regulating rent on private developments. There's actually a state law that says you're not allowed to do that. We also do not have any enabling legislation to require affordable housing. So we need to make sure that anything we're doing in this is not considered a taking, a regulatory taking, that we're forcing you to do something that we can't make you do. What can we do? We do have the ability to do incentives. We have pretty broad ability to incent you to do affordable housing. We just can't require it. And I'll talk in a bit about what those are, including our affordable housing bonus. So why is this an issue for us? We did a study last year looking at some of the issues that have been particularly plaguing Durham in the last few years. Simply put, over the last 10 years, rental costs are increasing at a faster rate than incomes in real terms. So adjusting for inflation, rents are taking a greater percentage of people's incomes at the median and on average. than they were just 10 years ago. That's for rental. For homeowners, we're actually seeing a little bit of the opposite, especially if you did not buy your home recently. If you've been a homeowner for a while and you've got a fixed rate mortgage, your percent that you're spending on your mortgage has actually been decreasing in real terms. And when that happens and interest rates increase, what tends to happen? People don't move out of their homes, creating an even greater crunch on housing supply, leading to increased rents and increased sales prices. People are moving here from areas with higher housing costs, and therefore, when they're selling their home in Chicago, California, New York, wherever it might be from, and moving here, which is great, they're finding more disposable income to be able to spend on housing and is increasing to an increase in housing costs. And one thing that we're seeing is while the percentage of households that are cost burdened is decreased, the number of cost burdened households is holding steady or increasing. So we're getting a lot more people moving here that do not find themselves cost burdened, but the people who have been cost burdened here are staying in that situation. Oh, and cost burdening means you're spending more than 30% of your income on rent. So the comprehensive plan looked at this. We have you just listed here a number of policies that were in the comp plan regarding affordable housing and how we should address that. Again, they were just more broad policies. And then there's a list of them. I'm obviously not going to go through all of them. 56 actions in the comprehensive plan to increase these policies. The main one we've been using is the affordable housing bonus. It's been in place since the UDO was adopted in 2006. It doesn't usually come in its zoning, it comes in its site plan, and it's by right. That means you can use it. You don't have to get special permission or anything. And what it basically means is if you're gonna, for every unit you create that's affordable based on the definition I mentioned earlier, which is 60% of AMI for rental and 80% of AMI for sale, you can build an additional 2 units that you wouldn't have been able to build before. So if I've got 10 acres and on those 10 acres I could build 40 units, if I say, hey, I'm going to make 10 of those 40 units affordable, I'm actually now able to build 60 units instead of 40, and I don't need any special permissions from the city council or zoning or anything to be able to do that. I'm just allowed to do it by right. One of the main ways, though, that we get additional units is through voluntary proffers. Through zoning, people say, hey, if you allow me to do additional density, if you allow me to do this, that, or the other thing on the development I want to do, if you let me do that, I will offer to either donate money to the Durham Dedicated Housing Fund, or I promise that I'm going to build a certain percentage of my units as affordable. It's usually about 5 to 10%. That people proffer. So this is another way to get units. It doesn't happen right away. If we see a zoning case come in and they say, hey, I'm going to offer to do 50 affordable units, it could easily be 5 years before those are actually built. So it's not a quick way to get this done, but it does get some affordability into our housing stock. So last page, these are especially the website engagedurham.com/new UDO. If you want to keep up with what's going on with our new UDO, that's a great place to do it. And we have some, I believe it's next month, maybe April, but soon there's going to be some additional outreach activities, some additional engagement activities regarding the new UDO, and we'd be happy to have any or all of you participate. And that is the end of my presentation if anybody has any questions. I've got to find my cursor. There we go.
Hi, Aaron.
Hey.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Very informative. Thank you.
Sure.
I had a couple of questions. One, I recall over the last couple of years receiving like some postcards asking for input. Is that, yeah, is that to help
That's
influence the
that.
comp plan? Okay.
If it was 2 years ago, it was probably about the comp plan. If you're getting them
Mm,
now, it's probably about the UDO.
UDO, yeah, pretty
Right.
cool to make that to connect those dots. So thank you.
Sure.
Um, Something I'll be speaking about a little later during our meeting is the point in time count. And that makes me think about just do you receive feedback from our more vulnerable populations? So the unhoused, is there any consideration, taken for feedback from them?
Of course. I mean, we will take feedback from anybody, right? When we say we want to hear from everyone, we want to hear from everyone. As you know, those can be some of our residents that are most difficult to reach.
Right.
But if you've got some suggestions as to how we can reach out to them, please let me know, and I'm not on the team that's doing the new UDO or that engagement, but I can certainly pass that along. Be happy to.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna put it out there right now. So
Yeah.
I think Housing for New Hope, they do their annual point in time count. I
Mhm.
think that would be a great organization for you to
Okay.
partner with.
And I would be surprised if we weren't already, but I'll definitely.
Maybe. Yeah, that's what I was asking. But
Okay.
no, doesn't it harm you to
No, not at all. Mr. Langloss, you've got your, am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thanks for coming back and joining us again. I had a question about the affordable housing bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you mentioned that kind of goes into place at the site plan level. And
Yes.
so is there, they get approval for their site plan, they build everything. What's the mechanism for then going back and making sure they're actually providing those units at an affordable rate versus just saying it to get the extra units?
Right. So one thing that our community development department does is draws up. Oh gosh, the term is escaping me. They do restrictive covenants. Thank you. Yeah, Maggie was about to chime in. The community development department will draw up restrictive covenants, and in those covenants, they agree to be monitored on an annual basis, or they have to provide documentation um, of the income of the residents in the affordable units. If they can't, I guess they can be cited, they can be fined. I think fines are probably the biggest tool we have to ensure compliance.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Ganser, you have your hand up.
Hi, Brian, or Aaron. Geez, sorry. Hi, Aaron. I have a kind of dorky specific question, and in full disclosure, is because I am also a planner. I'm the planning director at the town of Butner.
Oh, wow.
Um, so I get your department emails. I know you're doing a new UDO.
Mhm.
Has that been paused because of Senate Bill 382? I do not remember the law. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to be the
Yeah,
one who asks. I'm just curious what the status is because, and I mean, fabulous presentation,
thanks.
but just kind of wondering where that project is actually.
Right. So I wouldn't say we're paused.
Okay.
I'd say we're slow. We had to slow down a bit. So for
Fair,
those of you not
fair.
aware, back in, I guess it was was it January, December, December?
December.
December, state legislature in that huge bill they did that was supposed to be about Helene funding, but wasn't. It was about moving authority from one place to another. There was a rider stuck in at literally like 11:59 on the last day that did not allow local jurisdictions to initiate any rezoning that would result in a nonconformity. A nonconformity meaning either the use is not allowed in the zoning district, or the building's too tall, or it's too close to the street, or it's too close to the property line. There's a number of different things. Yeah. So it's essentially impossible to redo a new UDO with all new zoning districts for all 180,000 parcels or something like that we have in the county without creating some nonconformities. So yeah, I know there was talk about like essentially having parallel ordinances. Yeah. Where
Yeah.
we have the old ordinance, but then and I'm honestly not too familiar with um exactly what the
Yeah.
legalities of that are, or exactly how that works, but and everything I've heard is that there's multiple bills
Yeah.
filed to repeal that, but sometimes it's for some counties and sometimes it's for all counties, and we'll see how that plays out. But the intent is to still move forward somehow.
Okay, no, that's fair. It even though Butner is not, rewriting their whole UDO like you are, it definitely puts a damper and just makes it a lot
Yeah.
harder for planners to do anything, to be honest. So I was just curious. So thank you.
Sure. And I actually have a follow-up question for you.
Yes.
We used to have a planner in our department named Brooke Roper. She's now over at the county, but her
Yep.
maiden name was Ganser.
Not related.
Not related. Okay, just
Most
curious.
likely. Yes, I know of her. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Small world.
Aaron, I'm not seeing any other questions. I do know you have another meeting to jump in
Yeah, I need to be over at the county. I need to be over at the county by 7.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Aaron. We appreciate
Okay.
your presentation, your insight, and your availability this evening. And thank you for letting us know that you also used to serve on the CAC. So I'm glad that you came back to us. This is very helpful information.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Okay, bye.
Next, we will have our Community Development Department update from Maggie.
Thank you, Valen. Good evening, everyone. Hope your day is going well. So I'm going to give the Community Development Department update on behalf of Mr. Johnson. Sadly, he could not attend this evening. So a couple we had a groundbreaking, and I say we, it was not we, it was the developer, had a groundbreaking for Sankofa Landing. That is an ARPA funded development that has a joint city county funding mix of those ARPA monies totaling a little over $9 million. And that project has 156 affordable units. So that groundbreaking was earlier this month. We will make sure moving forward any other groundbreaking, specifically or especially those that we are facilitating as the city, that the whole group gets invited to those. But that was great news to move forward with some of those ARPA projects, because I'd imagine Reginald shared last month, we were able to commit all ARPA funds by December 31st, 2024. That was the commitment deadline. So we got all those projects. It was 7 total appropriately committed. Also, we were able to bring on board a new DPA program administrator who started in January. It's really exciting because this is the first time in well over a year that we've had a full-time staff person that's fully dedicated to administering the down payment assistance program. So we have that increased staff capacity, and our new staff member, Andrew, he is working on a variety of things, marketing and outreach, reviewing and updating our current underwriting policy and procedure manual, things of that sort. So I would venture to say in the coming months, if the committee would want him to come and join and hear about some of the work he's doing, he'd be happy to attend. We also met, I think it was in November, Mawson Ross, our marketing partner for the Forever Home Durham initiative. They did a presentation on some of their marketing efforts and the work that they've done. We launched earlier this month a media campaign or new media campaigns for Forever Home Durham, specifically with various news outlets, branding of that sort, some social media presence. So we're excited about that. And we've also recently updated our webpage, our Forever Home Durham webpage that's linked underneath the Community Development Department webpage. It's a pretty big undertaking, so feel free to check that out when able. We are right now in the thick of the FY 2026 budget process. So as a department, we had to submit our initial budget last week, and we are continuing through the budget process that's prescribed by the city manager's office, budget management services. I would recommend if y'all get an opportunity to listen into city council's budget retreats. There's a lot of great information, presentations, high level kind of overviews of the budget process and things that are forthcoming in this new budget. And we'll keep everyone updated if or when we're making public presentations about our budget. The last item I wanted to talk about, I'm sure everyone has seen, heard, read about some of the kind of uncertainty at the federal level. I just wanted to let everyone know we are meeting with our field office being, they're based out of Greensboro, and for HUD, it's our HUD field office for all of our federal entitlement grants. So we meet with our field office rep every other week to talk about a variety of things, just statuses of our entitlement grants, where we are, various issues, concerns, or status updates, things of that nature. And so we've been meeting with her bi-weekly. She has assured us business as usual until we hear otherwise. So we've been proceeding in that manner, business as usual. As of right now, we've had no impacts or implications on our federal funds. So that's kind of where we are as of today. So that was the last big item I wanted to talk about. Does anyone have any questions?
Are you planning have any contingency plans or just in case there are some negative impacts to the current funding levels where maybe the grant amounts haven't come in yet?
So a couple responses to your question, Robert. Firstly, know that all of our federal entitlement grants, so CDBG, Home, HOPWA, ESG, they do operate on a reimbursement basis. We have executed grant agreements or funding agreements for all of those grants through this current fiscal year. But again, they operate on that reimbursement basis, so we don't get reimbursed until after we've incurred the eligible expense. As far as contingency planning, from where I sit, I have not been engaged in any kind of conversations of that sort, but I do know conversations are happening at higher levels of the city. It's probably something Reginald could speak on a bit more clearly, but I do know there are discussions and talks, and we've had an array of meetings between our city manager's office, our city attorney's office, just kind of talking about what we do if there is an impact or if there's an impact on us. So hopefully I answered your question, Robert. I know that we have
Yes,
done
you
what
did.
planning we can, and there are folks who are spending quite a bit of time trying to figure out how we respond if XYZ happens.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Any other questions? Okay, Fallon, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you for the update, Maggie, and we know that you all will keep us posted with any updates that you receive. So I do appreciate it. Next, I would like to discuss Community Development Week. As a reminder, it is in April. It's the week of April. It's April 21st through 25th. And for the sake of time, I think it may be best served as a broader discussion with the committee, recognizing that we do have a month or two to roll out a plan, but also just keeping in mind the bandwidth of our community development staff, given changes on the possible changes. It's late in the evening. I'm trying to keep my attack together, but we want to be mindful that this is a dynamic situation that we are navigating. And with that in mind, I think to have some things that we could maybe propose. And I know in the past we had talked about doing more with the down payment assistance program, which we had been advised we can't use the funding for CDD week for anyway. So that hasn't gone anywhere. And Maggie, I definitely would like to take you up on your offer to have the new administrator join us at a future meeting. But in terms of the community development week, I was thinking of some high impact activities that we might be able to do that we might be able to facilitate given what we have available. And so I just wanted to throw out those ideas and see what you all thought about it. I think we did have a mayoral proclamation last year. And so I would like to request one of those again. And then also, I thought it might be helpful just from a citizen's perspective if we're able to have like a news segment, if we could reach out like to a local news station and maybe for Reginald and or the mayor, I don't know what the mayor's availability is, but Reginald to give an update, very high level, but just sort of, this is what the community development department is. Here is how it serves the citizens of Durham, and then particularly how do we use the funding, how does Durham use the funding that we have available, like maybe a spotlight, with like some of the, I don't know what I'm trying to say, the buildings, so I'm thinking like a news segment, may be something where, we can get that and roll. I don't know. I'm just talking and Maggie can help me and we can figure out what some restraints may be later. I don't know if the city, if there is a rule for it, against it, if we have to use a particular media outlet. But I was just thinking, I know in the email that you shared with us a while ago with what some other jurisdictions had done. That was something that came up several times that people kind of did just like a news segment explaining what was going on. And then another idea I had is that maybe we can have a tour of one of the buildings or the buildings that has been funded by what are the particular funds that I'm trying to say, Maggie?
Yeah, Valen. So it's either Community Development Block Grant,
Yes,
CDBG.
CDBG. Yes, sorry.
That is the primary focus, but
Yes.
I think it's also important to note home funding, the Home Investment Partnerships Program. That is the only federal grant that's explicitly administered to create affordable housing. So that one does have the more affordable housing focus. But Community Development Block Grant or CDBG is a bit broader to the full gambit of activities that you administer to address community development based needs.
Thank you, Maggie. I do apologize. I thank you so much. I knew you knew. So those are the suggestions that I have. The mayoral proclamation, the request for that, a news segment spotlight with Reginald, a high level, the digestible everyday citizens overview of what CDD is and how we use those funds, and then possibly a tour. And we don't have to do all of those, but I was thinking, as someone who does not work at CDD, Maggie, you let me know. I was thinking that those may be high impact, but also things that like right last year we had the fair down at City Hall, and I just know with timing, that's probably not realistic right now. So those were some ideas that I had. I guess I will start with asking what are your thoughts about those ideas, and then if you have any other ideas or suggestions, please let me know. But I would like to open it up to see what you all think. Oh, Rashaki.
Yep. I love the idea of all three. I agree, um, from a layperson's perspective that they sound like impactful lifts with low risk of additional finances and not heavy lifts. My only additional suggestion would be maybe during the news segment portion, if we could highlight some of our partners, um, as another opportunity to recognize them and to encourage the continued collaborations. But I like the sound of all three. Maybe we could do every other day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday of that week. Or if we end up settling on just two, maybe Tuesday and Thursday. Something like that, just to, yeah, again, to your point, being considerate of the limitations that we may have in the moment in this season.
Thank you, Rashaki. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
Yeah, when I like your ideas as well, I agree with Rashaki. Another idea I had when you were talking about local media, and Maggie would probably know how to do this. I see on Facebook with the city of Durham, there's something called like Bull City Today, or it's some woman who interviews staff and other people and does these little segments. And like they're a quick watch, and I like that because it's fast. And I don't know if you or Reginald have ever been on that, but maybe either replaying that if you guys have, or if you haven't, now might be a good time to ask. So
Yeah, Fallon, do you mind if I jump in?
Oh, please. Thank
So,
you.
yeah, Jennifer, what you're referencing, Bull City Today or City Life, those are internal communications outlets for our communications department within the city. And the last time community development was featured on like City Life was in June 2024 for the down payment assistance program. What I don't know is what their current schedule is, like if we'd be looking towards April. I do know they do preparations and recording in advance of the month that it's published, because those City Life episodes, for example, they're generally 20 minutes. Recording happens in advance of. So I can make some inquiries with our communications department. I'd say the same with any external, like facing news outlets, that has to be run through our communications department. I will share, we've already had some preemptive conversations with them about Community Development Week. And we've brought it up in the context of Forever Home Durham and that initiative. So I think it will be an easy segue. The only variables I don't know are timing and how much lead time they need to either publish something via their outlets, or I'd imagine they can pretty quickly vet something for an external news source and what that would look like. So those are venues I could explore if that's what the committee agrees upon.
Thank you for that, Maggie. Do we need a vote, Maggie? I
So
see your hand up.
yeah, I guess two questions to answer your first question, Valen. No, we don't need a vote as to what we're going to do. I think we just need a consensus on what the committee would like the plan to be for Community Development Week, like what that looks like. And once we've solidified, this is the plan, this is what we want to do, then I can do some back end like administrative logistical work just to validate that, yes, we can do this in this way, or what alternatives would be if we can't. My follow-up question is about that tour. So who is your intended audience for that? Would it be just committee members that attend and participate? Would it
I
be
think
committee
I,
members, select staff?
my original thought was like just citizens, if that was an option. But if it's not, we could either have that be for we can have that open up for the committee or whatever you all think is best. I mean, I was just really thinking out loud. But if there are caveats to inviting the public to a tour of like one of the buildings, or like if it's a building that's like already in use,
Mm-hmm.
you can let us know. I mean, if there are caveats, we can work around that, or if we need to maybe limit it to the group. But I thought it might be nice, or maybe now I don't know if I'm doing too much. Again, I'm thinking out loud. It's late in the evening, but if it's if it's not possible for us, like with the timing or opening up to the public, if that segment could potentially be Reginald talking about this is what we use community development block grants for, for instance, the Joyce, I'm making this up, I don't know if my thoughts are running together, but like the Joyce, just opened up, and this is, 150 units and 80 are affordable. You know how I'm seeing a news feature in my mind. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if it's not possible for us to actually do a tour, that could just be sort of an overview where he's speaking, but it also is giving people visuals of like, here is where the money has gone, and here is how it's, helping the community.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be a workaround to where we don't have to open it up if that's not something that's feasible, given like privacy and timing and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that helps, that kind of clarity. I know at onset, my initial concern was like privacy, confidentiality, because I'm thinking about what projects are currently funded with federal funds or were recently funded. There's one under construction, one that just went under contract. It is vacant, but I don't even know if it's walkable or safe to inhabit, like in any way, like even just walking in. So I will do some looking at what would be the viability of something for the public. I also think about how we warrant signups and what's the limit, what's the cap. I think about waivers just surrounding transportation and
See, that's why you do what you
confidentiality.
do, and that's why I do what I do. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're thinking about all of that. I think a workaround, because my idea is just sort of,
Yeah.
I'm balancing all the insight that I have from being on CAC these past couple years,
Mm.
but also my reason for joining just as a citizen to know more about what's going on. So I'm
Right.
also thinking like I think the news segment may be opportunity, and maybe we can stick a pin in a tour if that's something that kind of needs a little bit more of a detailed approach and
Mhm.
logistical piece. But even how we have like the presenters come and speak at our meetings, and we kind of get those pictures of like, like that news segment can kind of be like, here are a couple projects that were recently funded, and this one is slated to open up in the last quarter of 2025. I mean, I think in terms of what we do, we can be very flexible. And so, I do want to, my main thing is just being mindful of the timing and the logistical pieces that are going into it. So I think, however, we can be flexible with it, but just to give people more information and visuals about what's happening, that's sort of where my train of thought was headed. And Leah, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I know this. I'm not saying that we have to do like the way they do when you like are looking at houses on Zillow and they do like a full 3D house tour. That's too much. But I'm wondering if there's like some version of what you're saying, Valen, that's like a virtual version where you can have like a little short video or even like a series of slides of pictures of like the inside of these finished units that don't have people's faces in them, right? Were like done after they were constructed, just to show people both like from the outside, but also what I think you're getting at, which is on the inside, what like people are actually living in, right? Who live in these units. And I'm wondering if, and it doesn't have to be before April, right? But I think that a product like that could be really helpful and would, as far as I know from like the Affordable Housing Implementation Committee, which I sit on, I think would kind of be in the vibe of Forever Home Durham in a lot of ways, could be reused on the website. Like it's a reusable asset. Could also kind of get at that purpose, which is showing the public where the money is going in a way that is really not it's not too kind of esoteric, right? Because I think a lot of our meetings are like, oh, it's units and it's like these big numbers and it's dollars, but it's like, no, this is like a physical place that exists now in Durham that people live in because of this funding and because of the match from property taxes and other things like that. So I think it might accomplish your goal without both in a way where more people could experience it, right? But also it could be reusable. So it would add something to kind of the Forever Home Durham brand.
Thank you, Leah.
Something we spoke about in the executive committee meeting, and I think you've even maybe mentioned it before, Valen. What about no, Maggie, you mentioned it, I'm sorry. What about seeing if there's a groundbreaking occurring that week? You mentioned it earlier, Maggie, just kind of that schedule, that calendar.
Yes, so Rashaki, Valen, if it's okay, I'm gonna
Yeah,
jump
go ahead,
in.
Maggie.
There is only one project that I can think of that has CDBG or home funds that may have a groundbreaking, but the work is more rehabilitation in manner. So they're not going to actually physically break ground. It's interior work. So that would be my only concern, is if there isn't the CDBG or home focus,
Yeah.
given what projects I know have recently closed.
Okay.
And something else, Valen, again, I'm gonna jump in if that's all right.
Oh, but
I wanted
please do.
to add, so Valen kind of touched on right now there's a lot going on in the federal government, and I know NCDA, National Community Development Association, they did put out an advocacy call last week, essentially saying, hey, folks who are involved or connected with these federal funds, please reach out to your congressman, senators, so on and so forth. Just the need for advocacy about these funding sources. So that may be something to just think about, if there's a way that we can also kind of frame some sort of advocacy-based work about these funds are essential, they provide essential services, and I think to Leah's point earlier too, a way to highlight them. And hearing Leah's idea about a virtual tour, that does sound like something that's feasible as well. I think it would take again, some administrative work to build out something like that, because that doesn't currently exist. And there's processes to make information and data like that public facing that would have to occur. But I think that's something I could explore as well and report back as to what that would look like.
Thank you, Maddie, and thanks for putting that out there. That actually helps me remember. So I'm supposed to be mentioning something about funding, and so how much money is it? Like $2,000 that we have for? Oh, sorry.
So we get, I say we, the committee receives $1,000 grant on an annual basis to be used for activities and things being carried out by the committee. We did spend some funding in October for the retreat that we had that weekend. I think it was October 4th. And also the grant runs on a city fiscal year basis, so it can be used between July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2025. But we do have to report out on uses for the remainder of the fiscal year in May. I have to get some detail to the city clerk's office. So we have available $654.54 that can be used to support any of these efforts or future endeavors the committee wants to undertake before the end of this fiscal year.
Thank you, Maggie. And I was asking because when you were talking about advocacy, I was wondering, Rashaki, when you were talking to Aaron, you were talking about like the postcards. I don't know how helpful they are, but I think it would be a good way to sort of tie the loop if we did have like a segment that Reginald was on, like look at all the stuff we're doing, and then like I get stuff from my, professional organizations or wherever, like, show your support to save, whatever. But I was just thinking maybe that was something we can do, but not that we specifically have to spend it on CDD week, because I do know we had talked about the down payment assistant working to do some kind of event with that. And then also I know last year we all really seemed to be in support of the awards dinner at the end of the season. And so I would really like to do that again. I don't know if, our advocacy with the down payment assistance program is more or less, I'm assuming it's money attached to that already. So anyway, my thought is that I appreciate you clarifying that we don't have to use it specifically for CDD week. And it seems like right now the ideas that we've discussed, we may not have to use any funds for that. And so it may be advantageous to start working on if we want to do the award ceremony like in the summer or to close out the year like we did last year, to maybe start planning on that yesterday.
Yeah, I just, we got good feedback from those partners from that awards. I mean, I believe that incentivizing recognition is a way to incentivize.
Okay. Well, it sounds like loosely we have a consensus. Well, as we wrap this up, for the sake of time, are there any thoughts that maybe what we've discussed so far is probably not the way we should go?
I did like the idea of some sort of media, whether that's, using the Facebook page or some sort of news outlet. I think kind of meeting folks where they're at, and a lot of that is kind of online. So
Thank you. And I know this is the meeting, so if you get off of this call and realize like, hey, I thought of something else, feel free to reach out to the executive team, Maggie and Reginald. But I think we can move forward with what we've discussed tonight, at least for Maggie to check on her end and then let us know if there are any things that we need to take into consideration or reasons why we can't move forward on those. So I appreciate your discussion. And next we'll have a report on the point in time activity from our Vice Chair, Rashaki Furness.
Thanks, Fallon. I'll try and make this short and sweet, y'all. Know we running over. It was a great experience personally for so many reasons. First and foremost, the information that they get from the point in time count, as most of you already know, is directly used to help with funding. So that's my first and foremost reason for just being proud to have participated. And there was an opportunity to talk to our most vulnerable neighbors, right? My group didn't get to talk to any, and we kept saying, I don't know if that's good or bad, but traditionally, you get into an area where you're interviewing your most vulnerable neighbors. So that was another reason why it was great. And then not to mention the opportunity to meet other volunteers, the director of Housing for New Hope. He spoke about how connections were made the year prior, and someone like met someone and like got a job after, that meeting. So, that's another reason to participate in the future. And last but certainly not least, it was definitely an opportunity for an attitude of gratitude reminder. I've been a little bit vocal on LinkedIn about, I have personally dealt with housing instability. And so it's very personal for me when you move out of a situation, sometimes we're human, we can forget, right? So good reminder there. So I would just encourage anyone who is kind of hesitant to do it, because I was a little scared, if I'm being honest, like, oh, there's a lot of information that comes when you sign up. They're like, don't do this and don't do that. And Sherrod was very helpful in saying it's calm down. It's not that serious. And it wasn't. Only positives. I can only take positives away from it. So just wanted to share that and encourage you all to participate in the future. If you're able, encourage others to participate. That's it.
Thank you, Rashaki. I appreciate it.
Thank
I
you. Do you have
also
anything to add?
Yeah, I participated with Rashaki, and I think we both were sitting there like, what did we sign up for? But my group, I think we met two neighbors during the point in time count, and it was really insightful. Like Rashaki mentioned, I think sometimes you can feel far removed, but really, I like being intentional to say neighbors because they really are. I was initially assigned a few blocks from my neighborhood, but then I got reassigned. And so very powerful. And so I look forward to sharing the result. I haven't received anything, but whenever we do receive their report out or their preliminary report, we can share it with CAC. So thank you for that overview, Rashaki.
Thank you, Val. Did anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Rashaki. And next we will open it up if we have for our public questions and comments. I don't know if we have anyone from the public joining us tonight. It doesn't look like it.
And Valen, I'm not seeing anything on YouTube and no attendees.
Thank you, Maggie. And lastly, we will have announcements. I do have one announcement. Well, I guess before I make my announcement, does anyone have any announcements that they would like to share? Okay. Well, I have an announcement, and that is to share that Amy Johnson has resigned from the CAC due to personal scheduling conflicts. And so I just wanted to acknowledge her service. Amy you all know she is very engaged, very committed. And so I can't speak for her, but just having worked with her on CAC the last couple years, I take it that being a very intentional person, she wanted to ensure that she could be as involved as she could. And so she has informed us and submitted it to the city. And so I wanted to share it with all of you and just be on the record to thank her for all of her contributions to CAC during the time that she has served. If there is nothing else and we don't need a motion, we can adjourn this meeting, and I will see you all in March.
Thank you.
Everyone, have a good
Have
night.
a good one.
Good
Take
night.
care.